One thing you'll notice right away in version 12 is that Barista has had a facelift. We have a nicer, smoother font here, and the buttons, both in terms of the MDI toolbar and those that are on the form, have lighter, newer look and feel to them. So again, application inherits that facelift from the framework. We saw in the past that if we did a shift and click, we could launch a form such as the customer form in single document interface mode, SDI mode. With version 12, that has now become a convenient right-click option. So you can right-click on the menu item and you have your choice now of launching in SDI mode, or, new to version 12, we can launch the form in a browser. We have a number of improvements in the querying system in version 12. Let's take a look at a few of those. In the past version, if you changed the sort column, it would save that so that when you launched the query the next time, it would come up with the same sort order that you had. But what you couldn't do before now is a multi-column sort. So in this version, I can click, for example, ascending on state, and then if I shift click, here for example on city, now I'm sorted in ascending order, city within state, or I can shift click again, and descending alphabetical order here, city within state. And again, that'll be saved when I get out and come back into the query. The filtering tool has been improved in that it's been pulled in line, so it doesn't launch in a separate form anymore. We showed you the ability to export from a query. Now we have added to that the ability to export either all the query rows or only those rows that I've highlighted. So that's a nice improvement, particularly on a large query. And we've added the ability to export directly to the dockout viewer. So if I don't want to export to one of these particular formats on disk, I can tell it to just bring this query up in the dockout viewer. And from there, of course, I could save it, print it, or even email or fax. We'll see more about that in a minute. So that's a lot of improvement just in the Barista built queries. But with this version, Barista went a step further and introduced the ability to do custom queries. So we can construct our own queries. Which table do you want to query? Set some options for how the query should look and behave. Select the fields from the table that you want to see in your query. And take a look here. You notice there are some different table names mixed in. If I click here on the SQL syntax tab, we'll see the SQL that Barista is going to construct for us. Query Designer now lets us build queries from one or more tables, so it can automatically do joins. So that's a pretty powerful tool. I can test the query here as I'm designing it to make sure it's giving me what I want. Once I've got the custom query, I can then call it from within call point code, or I can even substitute my query for the default query that Barista would normally call from binoculars or magnifying glass. I mentioned something about email or faxing, and I want to show that to you because you had some rudimentary ability in past versions to email a document directly out of the viewer. But with this version, we now have a document processing queue, a monitor that lets you keep an eye on what's entering the queue, how the docs are being processed. So from document inquiry, I can go back to any document that I've created in the past. Here's a PDF of a vendor comments listing. And with this right-click option, this will bring up a form that lets me enter in some sender and recipient information, and off it will go to the document queue, where the document processor will get hold of all the documents in turn and send them off for processing. You can take a look at the history queue to see what's been processed, or if you've canceled something. You can take a look at the document processing monitor if you want to stop the queue interactively, or run it via the BBJ scheduler. Some honorable mentions are the fact that Barista security is improved. so that we can set security not only on these main forms that we launch from the various menus, but also now on detail forms that are part of a form, a header detail form, for example, or a detail window form. You saw that we had custom queries, and you've seen in the past that we've had a call point monitor, but with the advent of custom queries, we now also have a query monitor. So if you want to see just exactly what Barista is constructing when it runs your query, you can use the query monitor, and that's really handy for then copy pasting over into the Enterprise Manager's SQL tabs to do some troubleshooting. And again, last but not least, on the development front in version 12, we have the Structured Data Viewer. We had separate utilities in the past that let us look at layout for a table or the data that was in the table, but this Table Structured Data Viewer puts it all in one place, which is really handy. So I can double click here to bring up any number of layouts. So here I can see the fields that are in the table. I can see all the keys that are defined and what's in the keys. And then if I click the binoculars, this will give me a query of what's in that table. So this is a great tool for developers to use.